Well, happy Sunday, everyone. I hope yours is as quiet and calm as mine is. It is cold outside. Even though it's sunny, I decided to stay in. I'm not going to be doing any outdoor gardening today, but I have been doing some indoor gardening. And I'm using one of my thrift store finds that I showed you the other day in a video. This wooden box from Goddard and Goddard out of Detroit, Michigan. And so many of you quite kindly gave me a little bit of history on it, and I just loved that. It is just a basic wooden box. They probably used it for shipping or some such, and it has 4 different little compartments. And in that video, which I'll put a link to, I describe some of the different ways that I would use this box, but one of them is as a container for flowers. And let me kind of back up so you can see one of the reasons that I was attracted to the box in the first place, and that's because it fits in the windowsill of my Palladium style window in my kitchen. And whatever goes in this windowsill has to be rather narrow. And this time of year, I allow myself to have flowers and plants in the windowsill. I seldom do that in the growing season because, quite frankly, I don't want to block the view of the garden outside. But for right now, I allow myself the pleasure of enjoying some flowers against the blue sky in the windowsill. Now, a couple of things. As I said, it's narrow enough to fit onto my windowsill, which is one of the reasons I was attracted to it. And I just liked the earthiness of it. And so when I went to Trader Joe's, I decided to treat myself to some flowers, some tulips which were on special, and I brought home a large bouquet of them. They were so reasonably priced. And I got them in this kind of terracotta color because I'm not quite ready at this point to have the really bright colors of spring. I wanted something that still had earth tones and was maybe a little bit more somber. And then I also found that they just looked beautiful with some of the burgundy foliage of my valuable Nandina domestica outside. And then at the base, to kind of hide just the glass jars and tumblers that I've got in there that are holding water, I added some rosemary at the base. This is some of that Chef's Choice rosemary that I like so much from Southern Living. And I just kind of like the way it came together. It still looks kind of wintry. It looks like January to me, but yet it communicates that there's spring on the horizon. So now let me show you how I kind of replicated and played off of this look, because just like in the garden, how I like things to be harmonious with other areas of the garden, I like the same in my house. So let me take you over here to my mantle. And yes, I do have a fire going in the fireplace. As I said, it's really cold out, but it's not a huge blazing fire. In other words, it won't get so hot that it will prematurely wilt this beautiful forced bouquet of forsythia branches that I also got at Trader Joe's. Now pretty soon I could forage some of these from my neighbors. I don't have a forsythia, but I could. These, by the way, speaking of trash into treasure, these are hollowed out stumps. And there were so many things like this to be had after the ice storm. And they're hollowed out in the center, but as I told you earlier, on another video, this year I was absolutely obsessed with bark. And I'm likewise obsessed with these tree trunks that are hollowed out. And I simply just took a glass vessel, a waterproof vessel, and tucked it in there. You can see through this little cave that it's just a glass vase. And then because I wanted it to communicate with what I had on the windowsill, I've got some of those same tulips and nandina that I think look really beautiful, and again kind of earthy and seasonal on the mantle with the other kind of rustic elements. I like the way those look together. So one arrangement kind of speaks to the other. The one in the kitchen windowsill speaks to the one on the mantle. And then let me show you, because I just realized I had it out, let me show you this. I've got on my breakfast room table, this is a pedestal wicker basket. I've used it in so many different ways, and this was a Goodwill find too, all of $3. So lest you think that I don't use the goodies that I find, the treasures that I find at thrift stores or secondhand stores, I absolutely do. Now, a number of you asked, where do I store these things? Well, I don't know if it's really that interesting to you, but let me show you where I keep most of these baskets and this other kind of accoutrement that I use in styling indoors and out. Well, I've shared with you on many occasions before that I live in a very old house, or what for me is an old house, a 1932 English Tudor in Oklahoma City. And yes, we do have a basement, and down here is where we keep our treadmill and our workout equipment. It's where my husband and I train in the morning with our trainer, and it's also basically where I just keep a lot of the finds that I have, the baskets, some of the metalwork things, just the things that I'm not currently using for display or in the garden. Now, some of these things kind of move outside when growing season begins, but until then, this is where I keep them. It's not real fancy. There's a certain methodology to it, I guess, for me, but I can find whatever I need. And then I just come down here, and when I'm getting ready to do an arrangement or I'm styling something, then I have my basement at the ready to provide something for me. A lot of these things came from thrift stores, as I've said earlier, but some of these things also came from my mom and my mother-in-law. And there's another separate area of the basement that has a similar stand in it with more baskets and things. I also have an armoire upstairs that keeps most of my vases and such. But this down here is my very official way of storing things, and our torture chamber for where our trainer comes and trains us in the morning. And just to show you how old this is, it's got a little gas heater down here on a stone fireplace. Now, when my boys were small, this was a playroom for them. And it gets kind of cold down here. It's not a large space. But in these old houses, really any space that can be used for storage, we want to take advantage of. So there you go, where I store my thrift store finds. You guys have a great Sunday.